Welcome to Homegrown Tales, a live storytelling event held at Brews, 2 Piney Spring in Eureka Springs. The following was recorded June 4th, 2025. And now here's Zeek Taylor to introduce the program.
My co-producer, Sandra Spotts, and I welcome you. We're glad you're here. And I'd like to say happy Pride to everyone. Sandra and I are excited to be joined on stage by guest storyteller and local favorite, Judy Montgomery. Yeah. And let's have a round of applause for our out-of-town speaker away from Virginia, Jonathan Harper.
I want to remind you that all the stories that you will hear tonight are true, and they were written by the people who will tell them to you. Our musician tonight is Shane Causey. He's been here many times because we love him. He's a favorite. He's a multi-genre melting pot of a musician who, in his words, fits in where he gets in, pulling from his hodgepodge pack of tunes. From folk to funk, rocking till the grass turns blue, he plays it all from the heart. Please welcome a crowd favorite here at Brews, the multi-talented Shane Causey.
You satisfy all my needs by your side. I am free. No need to hide, you got my key. When I am with you, I never go without the rocky ways to out. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Shane. Our first reader is my Tales co-producer, Zeek Taylor. Zeek is a recipient of the Arkansas Governor's Arts Award for Lifetime Achievement. He has appeared on the NPR show Tales from the South, and a StoryCorps interview with Zeek is on file in the Library of Congress. A segment of the recorded interview aired on NPR's Morning Edition program, and it was heard by 50 million listeners. Zeek is a published author, and his most recent book is Out of the Delta, the Anthology. And because it is Pride Month, I'd like to tell you that Zeek and his partner, Dick Titus, have been selected to be the Grand Marshals of the Northwest Arkansas Pride Parade in Fayetteville. The recognition is to honor the two for being the first male couple to be married in the South. Yay! Now here's Zeek.
And I'm still married. I've been gardening a lot, so it reminded me of this story that I wrote about my grandmother. My grandmother, Eva Bell Harvey, or Mom as we called her, loved to garden. She raised vegetables to put food on the table, and she harvested enough bounty to fill the pantry with canned goods. She generously shared her harvest with family and friends. In the summer, her fingers were often stained different colors from handling the veggies. When she shelled bushels of purple hull peas, her fingers were a deep violet. She canned tomatoes, pickles, and spiced peaches, and she put up grape juice in fruit jars. In early spring, and long before the fruit was ready to pick, she harvested some of the green, unripe grapes and made a cobbler. The green grape cobbler had a nice sweet and sour flavor. Even though she worked outdoors as much as she could, the only tan she had was on her hands and where the sun hit her legs below her hemline. She didn't believe in wearing pants. She always gardened in a dress. Her gardening outfit included a cobbler's apron and a head covering. Mom could grow anything. Many times I saw her start a plant from a stem. She would spit on the stem's end, say something under her breath, and stick the stem into the ground. It grew into a thriving plant. While vegetables fed her body, flowers nourished her soul. She had flowers all over her yard. She devoted 2 or 3 rows of her vegetable garden to growing flowers. to be cut for indoor bouquets. She raised her flowers from seed or from cuttings. She taught me to appreciate the beauty of flowers, and I enjoyed working along beside her. One spring, she set aside a small area of her garden just for me. We went to the store, and I picked out zinnia seeds to plant in my section. I chose the zinnias because of the many bright colors displayed on the seed package. The very next morning, after planting the seeds, I walked a few blocks to her house to see my plants. They weren't up yet. My grandmother explained that it took a while, and she told me to be patient. She said good things are worth waiting for. The wait was worth it. When I showed excitement at the zinnia blooms, I noticed that my grandmother had tears in her eyes. She loved to see me happy. One year she was given a dozen rows of Sharon plants. They were seedlings, shrub seedlings. I helped her plant them in a row on two sides of my parents' large yard. She said, I think next to the iris, Rose of Sharon may be my favorite flower. I replied, mine too, next to zinnias. Many years later, when I moved to Fayetteville, my parents came to visit early one spring and brought my grandmother with them to see my newly purchased house. While my parents toured the house, my grandmother immediately went outside to look at my yard. By then, she was in her 80s and had very poor eyesight. Looking at my living room window, I watched her explore the garden. My mother said, we better go get her. She can't see good enough to keep from stepping on the plants. I said, no, let her go. Having a few plants trampled didn't bother me. She explored the flower beds and viewed the plants as best she could. She plucked a little marigold, smelled it, and held it close to her glasses. It was a joy for me to see her in my garden. She died a couple years later. Every time I paint an iris, I think of her. In the spring, I delight in seeing a pink rose blooming in my backyard on a bush that was started from a cutting that came from one of her rose bushes. In my front yard, I have iris blooming that are from tubers that a friend gave to her in 1944. I only wish that I knew what she said when she spit on that stem before sticking it in the ground. She had magic. At her funeral, she had requested the choir sing the old hymn, In the Garden. I come to the garden alone while the dew is still on the roses. Thank you. Our next reader is my friend and co-producer, Sandra Spotts. Sandra has written for several Central Arkansas publications and made 12 appearances telling original stories on the internationally broadcast radio show Tales from the South. Sandra has a background in fine arts that began with work as a fiber artist. She has been an art teacher and has worked as a professional designer. For the past several years, she has called Eureka Springs home, where she continues her art career as an abstract expressionist painter. A very good painter, I might add. Here is Sandra.
This is an encore reading of a story about my dear late friend Glenn, and so I read it with great pride. Glenn and me, the road trip. We met by default when I walked into my mall hair salon. Today, Glenn was taking up the slack for my absent stylist. Following the receptionist's instruction, I had a seat in the second chair and waited. After a couple of minutes, Glenn strolled in. In true late 70s style, he out-Hamilled Dorothy Hamill with his wedge haircut, puffy sleeves, and platform shoes. After exchanging greetings, he immediately started applying color, recently necessitated by the few strands of gray invading my red hair. The banter flowed about a variety of subjects and was punctuated with lots of laughter. We hit it off. My color turned out the best it had been in months. Little did I know, however, The hairstyle he gave me that day, much to my later frustration, would be the one I'd have for 30 years. He got in a huff the couple of times that I cheated on him with another stylist. He explained my hair color had varied from strawberry blonde to mahogany over the last few months because Maureen, my former stylist, had decided to stop the color whenever she wanted. It had to do with when she had a break or whenever her soap opera ended, not the timing of the color. No timer was involved. That day she became my former hairdresser. I returned a couple of times for Glenn to touch up my roots, and soon we were making plans to attend art receptions, go shopping, and meet for drinks. The friendship was sealed. We spent decades in conversations, ranging from both sheer lunacy to emotional support through losses of parents, his life partner, my divorces, and other heartaches life threw at us. We were always the first one the other called when tragedy struck. He always had my back. He went with me to the courthouse to act as my witness for 2 divorces, and each time we held a combination celebration and consolation session at the posh bar down the street. We lightened it up with discussion of how I should have flirted with a handsome judge, and he should have hit on the cute clerk. Then we concluded that divorce court is probably not the best place to attempt picking up new dates. Maybe. Some of our other conversations went this way. Glenn: yesterday I found myself standing in my underwear, ironing with a cigarette hanging out of my mouth. I stopped cold, looked in the mirror, and said out loud, "My God, I have become white trash." Or me, mishearing through his slight lisp, "I thought you just said you had a congealed weapon." Glenn: "Only that apricot Jell-O salad I took to Mother's Easter. That was not good. I said concealed weapon. One I found in my car." I was always the perfect second banana. On one beautiful Sunday morning, Glenn called at 9:30 a.m., already speaking in a very beery voice. "Throw the top down on the Z3 and come get me. We're going on a road trip." I complied, eager to hear what was up. Glenn shot out of the bungalow he shared with his partner Jack, threw a six-pack in the floor, and said more forcefully than usual, "Hit it." "All righty," I answered, "but where am I hitting it to?" "Let's go to Devall's Bluff and see Patty. I haven't seen her since she divorced that piece of crap and moved her kids back home." "Just get on I-30 until I tell you to turn." Jack was in a snit this morning, and I didn't want to be griped at anymore. We spent the hour's drive enjoying the fresh air, filling it with our usual crazy banter, never again addressing the squabble that brought us here. Devall's Bluff is an old river town with a population of a few hundred, the kind of town with all the stereotypes Hollywood loves to use as shorthand for the entire South. Swampy riverbanks, abandoned storefronts, and dogs running loose. Perfect Southern Gothic, or as we call it, normal. We stopped first at the legendary local barbecue shack and ate ourselves silly in pork sandwiches and coconut pie, then dragged our full bellies back into the car. Glenn directed me to the house Patty now shared with her 2 kids and her mother. She proudly showed off the salon she had opened in the detached garage. I halfway expected the cast of Steel Magnolias to come sashaying forward. Soon we were out the door. We visited for a while as Glenn subtly mined for assurances that Patty had a good business, and more importantly, that the piece of trash was no longer bothering her, and she was safe. Just before sunset, we headed back to Little Rock with Motown tunes blasting from the radio. Glenn's mood began to lighten as we gossiped and laughed at whatever silliness we could conjure up. By the time I dropped him off, I had had one of my best days. His troubles were washed away by way too much beer, some time and distance, and a road trip with the perfect second banana. Judy Montgomery has lived in Arkansas her entire life and in Eureka Springs since she was 27. Her earliest conscious memory is being in the big platform rocker with her baby brother as their mother read to them on her lap. She comes from a long line of storytellers and is delighted to carry on with stories of her own. Here's Judy.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I call this story Religious Experience. Saturday night I went to church unexpectedly. Sitting in our local auditorium, hearing a show during the Eureka Springs Blues Party. I was raised in church, first taken there at 1 month old. Mother told me that it started to snow flakes the size of silver dollars as we were leaving the house, but they decided to bundle me up and take me anyway. Apparently, the church ladies passed me around like a plate of cookies. My parents were lifelong devoted members of the Southern Baptist Church, and that meant our family was at church often. Twice on Sundays and Wednesday night. How many Baptist, ex-Baptist, recovering Baptists we got out here? Revival weeks made me anxious as a teenager because I was in church 5 extra nights. I was still expected to finish my homework and go to bed at a decent hour. Nights when the evangelist let the altar call go long made me a nervous wreck. Our First Baptist Church started at kindergarten, and I was a member of the first class. I remember fondly those joyful mornings we had music sitting on the tile floor. I wasn't musically gifted, but I could enthusiastically beat rhythm sticks and sing loudly off key with the best of them. I loved music, and the Baptists are known for theirs, even in kindergarten. Miss Gypsy was Mother's best friend, and they co-taught kindergarten for 3 years. Most of the other children, they were 5, were oblivious that our teachers were my mother and her friend. Miss Gypsy always watched over me, though, especially on the day I kissed Michael under the slide. Wait for it. I have no idea who initiated it. Any memory of the kiss was instantly gone when Mother spanked me for the offense. Miss Gypsy comforted me then, but she teased me about that kiss for years. What does it say about me that I vividly remember the punishment, but not my first kiss to a cute boy? During my formative years, I blithely accepted the teachings that were straight from the King James Bible. We even competed in sword drills. I know Mary Springer knows what that is. Where the winner was the first to find the chapter and verse called out by the moderator. The lesson from church that still stays with me is the golden rule. Many years later, when I was confirmed in the Episcopal Church, my priest said I probably knew more about the Bible than she learned in seminary. That's a lifetime in the Baptist Church. When I was 14, we had a pastor who used the funeral of a beloved young man to preach hellfire and damnation. Over 800 people, mostly teenagers, filled the sanctuary. Our friend died tragically in a train car collision on the way to school. He was the golden child of his family and our community and was a practicing Christian. During the service, our youth choir watched from the loft as his mother broke down and was led out. At the end of the service, we all dutifully filed past his open casket, sobbing at the loss of our neighbor and friend. Because of the Repent or Die sermon that day, It was the beginning of the end of the Baptist church for me. Whatever happened to once saved, always saved? I gladly left the church behind when I started the University of Arkansas. There were high expectations that I would be active in the Baptist Student Union like my sister before me. Despite regularly walking past the BSU at the end of my block, I never darkened the door. College classes and experience encouraged self-exploration. I met people of many beliefs and traditions. Even my first English instructor openly professed to being an atheist. Decades passed when I had no church affiliation and didn't practice any faith. Then in my 40s, I longed for God again. An older friend invited me to join her at the local Episcopal church, and I soon found a home there. Ultimately, I became fully involved as a clerk for the vestry, reader, communion server, Sunday school teacher, and faithful attendee. Many years later, on a Sunday morning, I stopped mid-sentence while reciting the Nicene Creed in church. As a congregation, we had just said in unison, "I believe in one God, the Father Almighty, maker of heaven and earth, of all things visible and invisible. I believe in one Lord." Wait, what about the millions of Earth's inhabitants who believe differently? How could I claim mine as the one true God? In the coming weeks, as I struggled with this, I sought the advice of a former priest. She simply said, "Judy, this is what we believe." Another mentor told me it wasn't necessary to say those words aloud. That didn't satisfy me, and once again, I left my church and faith, where I had been happy until I was not. Soon I was persona non grata to most of my close friends from church. That violation of "do unto others as you would have them do to you" really stung. Then, last Saturday night, I was taken to church in the best rhythm and blues tradition, actually transported by hearing singer-songwriter Ruthie Foster in concert. She has been a favorite musician ever since I first heard her perform in a past Eureka Springs Blues Fest. When she was announced as a headliner for the 2025 Blues Party, I knew I had to hear and see her again, live. And how she delivered. People were already clapping, shouting, and whistling. And then she sang "Phenomenal Woman," the Maya Angelou poem set to music. From the first line, I was transfixed. Pretty women wonder where my secret lies. I'm not cute or built to suit a fashion model size. The chorus then of "I am a woman, phenomenal woman, that's me," resonated in my head all weekend. After the show, I rushed up to the lobby to buy CDs, but didn't see "Phenomenal Woman" on any. So I wove my way back down the aisle and discovered Miss Foster walking the stage edge, leaning down to shake hands. When my turn came, I blurted my burning question: which album contained that song? Next to me was another fan who showed me the correct CD. I hurried back against the tide to the now crowded lobby, and the woman, Sherry, who had answered my question, was already in front of me in line, turning to hand me that CD, insisting I take it. "I bought it for you." Wow. Phenomenal. The next afternoon, I was crossing through the hedge like I do to go to the bakery next door. And there came Sherry and her local friend Jillian from the night before, stepping out of their car and instantly coming to greet me with big smiles and hugs. We were all delighted with our not by chance meeting. I introduced them to Lori, the baker, and my dear neighbor. And 4 phenomenal women sat down and talked and lifted each other up like we should, in church or on a patio. Phenomenal indeed. Thank you.
Once again, I would like to welcome to the stage my friend and my co-producer, Sandra Spotts.
This is called Tale of a Goat. They had the cutest meet cute a couple could have. She was in the throes of a divorce, as he recently had been. He was the appraiser the bank had sent to her after-school arts center. She was charmed by the cute answering machine message delivered in the sexiest voice. Upon their meeting, he, disarmed by her good looks and vivacious personality, was taken aback. Through great rapport, a lunch they deemed as not really a date, and the finalization of her divorce, they were smitten. It was time for the best friend to come into town and meet the charming beau with son in tow. That was me. My son, age 12, and her 9-year-old daughter had been playmates since birth. She was settling into a duplex and single life, so I had come to help. Shortly after arrival, we needed to go on a short shopping trip and felt the kids could manage themselves, with a couple of caveats to my son and her very take-charge daughter. Don't open the locked door to anyone, and don't let the goat out of the den. Yes, the goat. A feature of her arts program was a barn with a few animals for the children to enjoy. Twin goats had been born on an especially cold night, and only one survived. She had brought it to her duplex to ensure its survival. We went about our errand, returned to an open baby gate in the den, the unmistakable odor of goat, and my son's facial expression that read, "Where did this go wrong and how did I get out of control?" Take charge daughter had decided it was really okay to free the goat, who apparently had withheld bodily functions until experiencing freedom, then released enough pee for an entire herd. The human kids grabbed every towel in the bathroom cabinet to use as mops. Take charge girl decided the best course of action was to launder the evidence, although neither had ever operated a washing machine. She stuffed the machine with the soiled towels and enough detergent to spiffy up a cruise ship. They figured out how to start it. They explained what had happened and their recovery efforts, showing us the overflowing washing machine, or world's largest producer of bubbles ever. I opened the lid and began to bail out the suds, the towels, and a wardrobe of tiny clothes, dresses 12 inches long, tiny shirts and pants. Take charge girl, practical to this day, explained that she figured she might as well take advantage of all those suds and do her doll's laundry at the same time. I was relieved that those were not the family clothes that could not withstand the copious amounts of detergent and had shrunk beyond recognition. That evening, the house was recovered, the goat was pinned securely in the den, and mild parental lectures were delivered amid loosely hidden giggles. Boyfriend came over for pizza and getting to know you time. He broke the ice by discussing what he knew was our favorite thing, decorating, and how she should arrange the furniture in her new digs. I knew immediately this gracious, calm man was the one for my Spitfire friend. After 35 years this week, they have proved me right. And during that weekend, my son learned to never let anyone get your or their or anybody's goat. Here is my wonderful friend, Zeek, to read again.
You're very lucky because you don't have to hear the story that I spent a long time writing. I looked it over. The past few days I've been distraught and pissed off about a lot of things, politics. So I wrote my life story laced with politics. It was like 9 pages long. I thought, I am not going to torture these people with that. So about 3 o'clock today, I thought, I'm not going to do it. So I pulled out a story I've read before. It's very short, two pages. The first time I read it was for an End Hate show for the Tales from the South on National Public Radio. It's heard by 130 million people, so this crowd's a little smaller. Thank goodness. And I read it a couple times at benefits, once here for an equality ordinance benefit and once in Fayetteville. So I will read it for you tonight. Even though I'm still pissed off, I'll try not to act like it. It's called Dancing in the Dark. It was socially acceptable in the 70s for 2 women to dance together. They danced together in nightclubs, street fairs, and even on telecasts of the popular American Bandstand show. The same was not true for 2 men. It was so taboo that when I lived in Memphis in the 70s, it was actually illegal for 2 men to dance together. I don't know if it was a city law or state law, but it was one that was enforced in Memphis. Arrests did take place. 4 male couples were arrested for dancing together at a bar called The Closet. The arrests were reported in the Memphis Commercial Appeal. My partner Dick and I enjoyed dancing. On weekends, we went to a bar called the Psych Out, and it was on North Cleveland in Memphis. The bar closed at midnight on Saturday. However, no one left the bar at closing time. The tables were cleared from the center of the floor, doors were locked, and we would have a private dance party. The cops were aware of what was happening inside the bar and would periodically show up. The bar owner kept a lookout on duty, and if the cops pulled into the bar's parking lot, lights inside the bar would flicker on and off. Everyone would quit dancing, and by the time the cops were let in, we were all seated. After the cops left, everyone once again danced. The popular 70s song, American Pie, was a favorite of the bar patrons. When that song played, everyone would stand together, place arms over shoulders, and form a huge circle. The circle with up to 40 guys in the formation would then go around and around in the bar. We whirled around the room for the entire length of the 8-minute song, locked together and having a great time. We were young and reckless and enjoying an activity that was perhaps made more exciting because it was illegal. We were brothers arm in arm, sharing a secret that involved more than dancing. We danced all night long. At dawn, we left the bar, and several of us would go to the Omen Inn, a diner on Union Avenue, where we ate breakfast and made plans to do it all again the following weekend. While the sergeants played a marching tune, we all got up to dance. Thank you. Our next reader will be Jonathan Harper. Jonathan graduated with his MFA in creative writing from American University. He adores writing in coffee shops. His short story collection, Daydreamers, was named by Kirkus as one of the top indie releases of the year. His latest novel, You Don't Belong Here, is available on Amazon. Jonathan is in Eureka Springs for the 14th time. It's his annual residency at the Writers' Colony at Deary Hollow. We met several years ago and tried to get together when he's here. This past weekend, we linked up at Brews, our favorite watering hole. It was here that I twisted Jonathan's arm while asking him to read for us tonight. He kindly agreed to do so. Well, maybe not kindly, but he did say yes. And now, here in a rare public appearance, is my friend Jonathan Harper.
Well, thank you, and a big thank you to Sandra and Zeek for inviting me here, and also thank you to John and Brews for hosting. John, I will not be doing karaoke. I'm going to read a piece, a creative essay I wrote and published in Gargoyle magazine last year. This is called West Village, 1999. Every time it snows, I think about New York. Back in college, I would take the Amtrak up from DC to Penn Station just so I could wander around the West Village on my own. I had an old friend from high school who lived in Jersey City, Mary, who offered me a place to stay, and she was what allowed these little trips to be possible. Christopher Street back then was my playground, and I would walk up along the narrow brick buildings, staring out into the apartments and imagining what it was like to live there. I would spend hours in the factory cafe for the price of a cup of coffee, feverishly writing in my notebook, surrounded by men who were always willing to share their secrets. On one trip, I even got bold enough to enter one of the gay bars on Christopher Street and hid in the corner. I didn't talk to anyone out of fear they would throw me out. Eventually, the bartender said, "Go home, baby," before someone gobbles you up. But wasn't that the point? I would have let him consume me down to the bone. This was the late 90s, back before the advent of September 11th, back when the village was still mostly queer, the rent still cheap, and the Twin Towers still stood sentinel on the skyline. I want you to know the city was different back then, that I was different. I was a different sort of creature. But here's the morning I really want to tell you about. It was snowing, and the West Village was covered with a thin layer of white fluffiness that made Christopher Street look almost ethereal. It was so cold, and there was a haze that turned red bricks into the color of mud. Footprints disappeared after a few steps. I sat in the factory cafe watching the snowflakes fall through the front window. All I had on me was my wallet, a Discman, and a notebook full of writing that was supposed to mean something. I was waiting for something to happen. Anything, and I was willing to wait forever for it. The man next to me had moved seats twice, and I wanted to believe that I was the goal. He was a very charming fellow, with a smile that could almost unhinge and swallow people whole. He was an actor, of course. With charm like that, what else could he be? His claim to fame? He had played one of the lifeguards in the film Jaws. I was spellbound, and I wanted him to know it. "Oh my gosh, so you were an extra?" And I said that, not realizing it was the worst possible thing to say, and how quickly his smile disappeared from his face. Nope, he was not an extra. He was a character actor. He had a speaking line. He was the lifeguard who yelled, "Shark." Perhaps if I had said the right things, this would be a different story. I met another man shortly after who beckoned me to his table. I do not remember his name, but I can still picture him clearly in my mind. The sheer size of him, the way he hunched over, made his belly look like a compressed barrel. His grisly face, his kind eyes. He carried himself in such a way that suggested he'd given up on trying to be one of the pretty ones long ago, and he was actually happier for it. I liked him immediately and felt that we were probably both there for the same reasons. "Let's go out and look at the moon," he said. "It's 2 p.m, I replied, "but okay." Outside, the snow was still falling as we walked side by side, his body towering over me. There was no destination, just the urge to move against the wind. We stopped briefly in a convenience store where he bought a pack of smokes and 2 porno magazines, and he offered one to me as a gift, but I didn't take it. I was 19, and I was already an expert at saying no to things I secretly wanted. I wanted him. I do not remember all the things we talked about, but we must have covered entire years of our lives. I remember his deep soprano's voice, the light scent of smoke on his coat, the way he held my shivering hands to keep them warm, In a diner, we ate over steaming cups of coffee as he told me about Staten Island. Had I ever been there, he asked. Did I want to see the neighborhood he grew up in? We could take the ferry and find a bar that didn't check IDs. We could go look at the moon. I was in love by then. In that simple way that young people often fall in love with strangers who show them kindness. I wanted that afternoon in the diner to go on forever. I wanted to continue hearing his stories, to answer his questions, to think of all the fun things we could do. I wanted him to hold me tight enough so I could sink inside of him, nestled in his chest and be protected by the wind. But I also knew I couldn't go. My friend in Jersey City was waiting for me. I was due back at her apartment in time for dinner. If I did not show up, she would be so worried. And where exactly was Staten Island? It was pretty far away, I was sure. These are the things that go through your head when you are young and inexperienced and have never wandered farther than the West Village. How would we get there? And if we got separated, would I be able to find my way back? I didn't own a cell phone. I didn't have a credit card. No one knew where I was. I remember his smile, his solemn nod, the way he understood all of this without me having to say a word. There was no pressure, no pushing. He was nothing but kind. It's all right, he said, as he paid our bill. Next time. At the PAF train, I lingered by the turnstile, dollar in hand, before I quickly rushed back up to the street. I was fickle back then, good at changing my mind at the last possible moment, and it was suddenly very important that I go and see Staten Island. Like this chance might never present itself again. As I retraced my steps back to the diner, I clung to this dim hope that the man was there waiting for me. He was not. I returned to Christopher Street, pacing up and down, wondering if he was in one of those bar windows looking out for me. The snow had stopped by then, and the streets were filling up, and the cafes were so full there was no place left to sit. Evening comes early in winter. As the streets darkened, I knew it was time to move on, so I returned to the warmth of the PAF train and let him fade into one of those apparitions of other missed opportunities. But did it really happen like that? Even as I read these words, I wonder how many memories I've blended together to form this one. Because now that I think about it, the Jaws actor was wearing summer clothes. I remember he had big, beefy legs sticking out of jean shorts and really oppressively large feet in flip-flops. He couldn't have been there. I'm also not sure it was the Staten Island man who offered to buy me the porn magazine. That might have been someone else. I also don't think anyone has ever asked me to go look at the moon. I left out the part where the man from Staten Island offered to take me to the peep shows, down in those hidden cellars where you could gain access to a private booth for the price of a token. Even if I didn't go, I worry that by mentioning it, you would think this was a dirty story, that you would see this man differently, and I didn't want to do that to him. I chose to remember him fondly, as this gentle giant who kindly walked with me in the snow. Can I admit that I might not even been in college yet? That maybe I was actually still in high school during those delirious 2 years when my family lived in Jersey, when I started to realize a few things about myself. I had felt that queerness growing inside me like a weed and was growing weary of having to pluck out the leafy parts that showed. I would go to New York because I was lonely and curious and desperate to escape the watchful eyes of the military base and the church. For years, I thought that city would save me. Or is this just another version I keep telling myself? But here's what I know. It was snowing in West Village, and my chest tingled as if I were walking on sacred ground. That when I was younger, I was easily dazzled, and I could only see the beauty in other people. For years, I kept returning back to that city, hoping to relive that experience. But nothing stayed the same. A plague of confusion has followed me ever since. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Like I told you, this is a rare public appearance for him, and he was so nervous, but after a few beers, I can talk anyone into anything. And so here we are. And I appreciate you all being here. Thanks to Brews, to John, for hosting us here. And thank you all for coming. Let's hear it again for Judy and for Jonathan and for Shane. Sandra will tell us about the next show.
The date of our next show will be August the 6th. The next storyteller will be Crescent Dragon Wagon. Yeah. And our music will be provided by Jeremiah Griffin, who is a new musician for us. And thank you for coming.
You've been listening to Homegrown Tales, a live storytelling event held at Brews, 2 Pine Spring in Eureka Springs. Join us again next time for more Homegrown Tales.